Donald McDonald are saying, would you please provide a short history of the Quran-only Muslims? What? Were they the most common Muslims after? Oh, the Quran-only Muslims. Were they the common Muslims after Muhammad's death? Do some hadiths exist eternally in heaven along with the Quran? Thanks. No, there's no hadith in. Okay. Um. Okay. This is a very. I don't know how much time I can spend on this. Would you please provide a short history of the Quran only Muslims? The Quranist or the Quran only Muslims, for people who don't know, they're Muslims who think that the only book that you need is the Quran, and that you don't need to, you don't need the hadith. It's a very bizarre fringe group of Muslims, because as you study the Quran, you would really quickly understand that without context, the Quranic verses could mean many different things, especially when you recognize that the Quranic verses, the original Quranic verses, didn't have the vowels or the dots. I mean, the short vowels and the dots, the dialectic marks. It's without the hadith, you could put the dots and put the dialectic marks in anywhere you want, and you could make the Quran to mean whatever you want, and you could get whatever interpretation you want out of it. Like it makes the Quran itself without the hadith makes absolutely no sense. It's a position that there's no defense for. Okay, and no, it's not. The Quran only Muslims are a recent thing. It's not a traditional thing. Okay, because in fact, the Islamic tradition has always been surrounded by the stories of Muhammad and what he did. Ever since you had Islam, you had the stories of the Quran in the context, the verses of the Quran in the context of the stories that happened. So whether it was hadith or sirah, or even not, a proto hadith, a hadith that was not yet canonized in the form that we recognize it today, the Quran itself by itself, it was never a thing that could be relied on. You did need the context at which the Quran verses were being interpreted. This is a completely modern thing, and it's an effort to reform, because many of the most ridiculous Islamic teachings come from hadith, and a lot of Muslims have recognized that. Like when they look at the hadith, it's so undefensibly embarrassing, some of the hadith. I mean, that they have spent like many hundreds of years coming up with excuses for the Quran, for like problematic verses in the Quran, but the hadith makes that astronomically more difficult. Like the nonsensical hadith that you have, it's so laughingly, like it's so stupid. Like the fact that there were monkeys stoning another monkey because she had committed adultery, the fact that I don't know, every fly has and one of its wings has a poison, and on another wing of it has the cure for that poison. So if a fly falls in your drink, make sure you dip it all the way in so that you get the cure as well as the poison. This Aisha constantly having to wipe off semen from Muhammad's clothing, and it would never stop. These, also like executions of people like me, like apostates, like the penalty for the big. All of this is like in the hadith, and it would be so exhausting in trying to reinterpret all of that, or try to come up with excuses for all of that. So there's this modern effort to just focus only on the Quran and the hadith. This is completely fringe. It doesn't, mainstream Islam does not agree with it, and we shouldn't even see it as a reform, because the Quran itself is extremely brutal and problematic. Like this would not be a reform, because the Quran by itself is extremely problematic, right? You just have to just fight it as a religion, rather than trying to reform it. So, and no, there's no belief that there is a. Okay, so you don't have an hadith. There's no eternal hadith in heaven like the Quran, because for people who don't know, the actual Quran, the original Quran, there's a copy of it. the main copy of it has existed independent of space and time in heaven. That's the belief of Muslims. And what we have as a Quran is just a copy of it, right? There is no belief like that about the Hadith. However, what is the Hadith other than reflections of sayings and the actions of Muhammad, right? So you don't need an eternal copy of Hadith in heaven because you have Muhammad in heaven, right? I mean, if the Quran that we have here on earth is a reflection of the Quran in heaven, well, the Hadith that we have here on earth is a reflection of Muhammad, and he's already in heaven. So, yeah, what would be the point of having eternal Hadith? You already have an eternal Muhammad.
Hey guys, if you want to join these streams live, get your comments and questions read by Ali and Armin and the guests, and most importantly, to get full access to the full video versions of all these episodes, become a patron. Link in the description below.